officially started, so we don't miss anything important.
I don't know what's important, but yeah.
Okay, back
Okay.
in action. I'm home from the reunion, and life's kind of back to normal.
So
Gonna
we're in
s-
Minnesota.
Yeah,
Where do you live?
Fairmont, which is South Central.
Oh, and
I'm
how
right
come?
on. I'm right on I-90, practically right in the middle of the state.
So how'd you end up in Minnesota?
Followed my daughter and grandkids.
Ah, yeah, okay, I can see that.
So I officially told the grandkids already. The first one to become filthy rich takes me back home. So
How old are they?
the youngest is 17, oldest is 29.
Okay, so that I have a 29-year-old
Okay, two
son,
great
not grandchild.
grandkids.
Oh my God, our daughter is having her first in August, so
Okay, that'll be your first grandchild.
yeah. And he's not filthy rich at birth, I don't believe. So
No, so that's why I gave them time. And you are on the East Coast where?
I live outside of Charlottesville, Virginia. You know where University of Virginia is.
Okay.
It's a town called Greenwood.
How
So
long?
64 heading west. Anybody comes this way, we got room. So I can feed you, whatever.
How long have you been there?
So we moved here in 2017. Okay, so we
Okay.
were in Germany from 95 till 2017. We
Holy
lived
moly.
for a long time, yeah. Basically raised our kids over there. Yeah. Army,
So are they
Army.
multilingual?
Our daughter is bilingual. So she went to German school, kindergarten until she graduated. Our only deal with her was she had to go to college in the United States. Because if she stayed in Germany, she'd marry a German, and that's too far. My mom knew. My mom would come visit. I said, "What a dirty trick to do to your parents." My mom would fly from Honolulu to Stuttgart, Germany, and that is a long trip. But we were there for so long. Yeah.
Are
So,
you still working?
oh no, I retired last year.
Okay.
I had I went to West Point, graduated, was commissioned, was in the Army, and I was in 16 years, and I was given the opportunity to retire early. So today is the 29th anniversary of my retirement. I retired in, is that right? Yeah, June 30th, 1996.
96.
Yeah. And I stayed home, I went back to school, got a PhD, raised kids, then started working again after 17 years in 2013. And then I worked in Germany at Africa Command 2013 till 2017, moved here. And then I couldn't find a job because where I live, it's all Intel stuff, and I was doing operations kind of stuff. So I didn't work, and then I got a job being the Army ROTC recruiter at University of Virginia. So I did that for 5 years. It was great because then you just bring those kids in, talk to them about scholarships and stuff like that. So, but that's sort of like encapsulated, right? Okay, it's
Yeah.
over. Interview's over.
How many children do you have?
I have three. So my oldest, Kaliko Lehua, she is 30, she'll be 35 this year.
Okay.
And I have a son, David Kainoa. He is 31. And then my son, John Marshall Makanalani, he is 29. He'll be 30 this year. And he's up so he just hiked the Appalachian Trail. He worked for Bank of America. He hated it. So he resigned. So he's like, what can I do? So we said, we'll support you to hike. So we're in the middle of the trail. So we took him up and he hiked north, like 1,800 miles to Maine. Then we picked him up, brought him home, and then he started hiking south towards Georgia. And then Hurricane Helene hit. So he was hiking into Tennessee when the hurricane hit and the trail got washed away. So we had to go pick him up, brought him home, and then he worked, till April. And then he went in April, started in Georgia, and then hiked 472 miles to complete the 2,200 miles.
Holy moly. How much time did that take, actual walking time?
Okay, so for the May to August, so wait, May 20, May, June, July, 3 months, 4 months, May 20 to August 20 to go the 1,800 miles. And then 3 weeks to do the 400. I mean, he was crazy. Like he would hike some days 25 miles, 30 miles. So he was really fast on the backside. And while he was hiking, his cousin said, "Hey, I got a job opportunity for you." One of his buddies from college is a sea captain in Alaska. He's from Alaska. And he was looking for a crew member because they go fish salmon during the season. So he said, "I have a job. I'll tell you when you pick me up." So he's like, "I'm going to be doing salmon." Of course, his dad's first thing's like, "That's really dangerous." So anyway, he's on a boat with three others, and they are net. Like he told me, he had like 10,000 pounds of fish in the hold, and they take the fish then over to a like a processing ship where they freeze it, and then he goes back out. So he does that for, I don't know, 2.5 months maybe.
And he's currently not in a relationship.
No.
Okay, that helps
Yes, that
with a
would
job
help.
like that.
He told me he is not never getting married, but I don't know. He's a handsome guy, so I don't understand why. But anyway,
He
so
probably likes things his way.
who does it?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So let's get ourselves a starting point, Susan. What grade did you start Kamehameha?
Okay, third grade. Michael Crab was in my class. Who else? We had the picture of the third graders. So my cousin, Casey Cho, he was at Kamehameha. And so I'm like, I want to go where Casey's going. So then I applied and I came in third grade. And I
Wow, okay.
can't remember who our teacher was. She got married. It was a woman. And Michael remembered who her name was. I forget it.
Michael remembers everything.
I know. I should have the tea leaf hat on for Charles Kaupu, right? Just so, yeah. So I started in third grade. So my dad and mom. So my dad is the one with the Hawaiian blood. His great grandmother, Kawi Kave Cow or Ku, I can't remember. Cherie Anderson, Puanani Anderson is my cousin by this family. We're related
First
by
cousins?
by the Kelletts. No, I'm not sure where, but she was pure Hawaiian in Kauai. John Kellett was a harbor master. They got married. They had kids. Pa'alua Danson Kellett moved to Oahu. That is my great grandfather. His son Edmund Kellett had my dad. And Edmund Kellett married Helen King. Do you want to know all this about the Hawaiian
Sure.
side?
Yeah.
Okay. So anyway, Helen King was sister to um, Samuel Wilder King. So Kings
Okay.
married Kelletts, and then okay, then of course I'm the number three of six.
Okay.
Yeah,
So where did you go kindergarten to second grade?
Kaneohe Elementary School.
Any classmates there with you?
I want to say Gay Ann, but I can't remember. I don't remember.
Okay.
It's bad. You think like, and I'm with girls, guys. Hey, well, Katie wasn't at Cunningham Elementary. She was at St. Anne's, Katie Kamaka. But she lived down the road for me, like, quarter of a mile. Well, actually, they moved their house. So we grew up together. We knew each other since we were 3 years old. She came in fourth grade after.
Oh,
And then
okay.
we would ride every morning with my dad. He would drive us, drop us off at the terminal. Or if we were late, he would take us up to school. Yeah.
What career did your dad have?
So my dad was a structural engineer. He went to Roosevelt. I mean, I'm trying to think. My mom and dad both went to Roosevelt. They graduated from Roosevelt, and he was kind of a bad kid, and gambling, smoking. So they made him, like they said, you can graduate if you join the army. So he went to, I want to say he was in Panama as a supply sergeant for whatever, one enlistment. Then he came home, went to UH, got his degree in engineering, and he went to California, San Francisco, because at that time, if you got your license in engineering in California, it was really competitive wherever you went. So I was born in San Francisco
Oh,
with my
okay.
brother. And then after 2 years, he came back to Kaneohe, Hollyco Place, a place that he grew up on the street he grew up in, the house he grew up in. So that's where I grew up down there in Hollyco.
All
Hollyco
right.
Place, across from Hawaiian Memorial Park. We used to tell people, first eternal flame, take a left, drive up the road. So
That's a good landmark. Can't miss that one.
good. It was a good landmark. Still there. Although I don't think the eternal flame is still lit, but the entrance is still there.
Yeah. I was just there when I was home too, visiting my grandparents' graves, and I can't remember if I saw it or not. Wasn't
There at
looking for
Hawaiian
it though.
Memorial Park.
Yeah.
Oh wow. Yeah. We used to walk all over there. Katie and I would always go down. It's really big now. It wasn't as big as before.
Okay, so then I grasped there's a little bit of military legacy then because of dad.
No, no legacy, honestly. Never. I mean, he went because they weren't gonna let him graduate, but I never had any military in my entire, like, I didn't even know. I guess maybe when after he died, I saw a picture that he gave to his mom when he was in his uniform.
First
So
time.
yeah. I mean, I knew he had gone in because he had talked about going to Panama, but there was no like military. I did not grow up at all with a military legacy, which
Okay.
is why my mom's like, okay, you can come home now. After I was at West Point for like 2 years, she's like, okay, that was great. Come back now. All right, mom. So,
O-
it was a fluke to go to West Point, but we can get to that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So let's find the path there. We're more than likely juniors, maybe seniors. We're thinking about beyond graduation. Are you formulating a plan? Do you have something in mind?
Okay, so I wanted to go to college on the East Coast somewhere, when I graduated. But we had 6 kids, and my dad made too much money for me to qualify for scholarships and too little to send me away. So I went to UH.
Okay.
And I tried to use my study habits that I had in high school to college, and they didn't transfer that great because I didn't study that much in high school. So when I got to college, I didn't study that much either. And it really is like, whoa. I mean, I don't even want to ask what my transcripts looked like at that first year at UH because I left, and they're thinking like, oh, grade point average, whatever, point zero or something. So I was in my first semester at UH. It was cheap, right? It's like $750 a semester, I think. It was great. And I was living at home. And the junior ROTC guy, I forget his name. I knew it for a long time because my dad's uncle had appointed him to West Point himself. I didn't learn that connection till later. He called and said, "Hey, they're letting women into West Point. You want to go? You want to try to go?" Out of the blue. And so, because I did well academically. I was in sports at school. I was in student government. So I guess that's why he called me, said, "Hey, you'd be a good candidate." So I'm like, "Yeah, sure. See the East Coast? My dad won't have to pay for college. That's awesome." Yeah, that was very, yeah. I was surprised when I got to West Point, believe me. So my mom was good friends with Gene King, who was lieutenant governor at the time. I wrote a letter to her to ask her to give me a letter of endorsement and sent that then to Patsy Mink, who
Now,
was our,
being a king, is she related to you?
she was married to my dad's cousin.
Okay.
But it wasn't, my parents were, I don't know if they knew each other from the King relationship or if they just knew each other because they were friends from growing up together. And Hawaii, it wasn't so big really at the time. You would know. Anyway, Gene King and my mom were friends. And so she wrote me a letter of recommendation. And then I sent my stuff to Patsy Mink. And because to go to West Point, you have to have a nomination from a
Oh,
senator You have to be nominated by a senator, your senator, or from your representative. So anyway, she made me a second alternate, and that's not even like primary, but I got in with that. But then they didn't know, right? I mean, they hadn't had women before. So this is 1976. The law was passed, Title 10 changed. They said all military academies have to accept women. So I said, okay, you know, I think I was
So you've got West Point on the horizon. I'm assuming from the little bit that I know, you have to enlist in the army first,
no,
and
you don't.
then
You don't
oh
enlist. You don't enlist at all. It's two separate. It's an officer producing. You enlist, you go then enlisted. So at West Point, and in fact, any ROTC, military academy or ROTC, the first 2 years, there's no commitment. You do not have a commitment. You can try it. And then when you start your third year is when you have a commitment and you owe then 5 years upon commissioning, depending. But I mean, West Point for me was when I got commissioned, I owed 5 years to the Army. Now I think it's changed to maybe 6 years. So my plan was okay, go to West Point for 2 years, no commitment, check it out, come home, finish at UH. That was my big plan. Because I've never been to the East Coast. I'd been to California, I ran AAU track, so I'd been to Long Beach, but that was really as far as I'd gone. I think I went to some camp when I was at school too. Maybe that was in Arkansas, but that wasn't the East Coast, right? So I, you have the list, you pack up all your stuff you have to take. You have to take these like ugly black shoes. My mom went shopping with me at Alamana, and we only kind we could find were like these old lady orthopedic shoes. And so I'm like, Mom, you buy those. I'm not buying those. They are so ugly. So I had to buy those shoes. And then you pack, like your shower shoes. And Dwayne is from Newton One, right? Dwayne now?
yeah.
Is he? So I had been to a graduation party at his house and someone stole my slippers that fit. The only pair left was 2 sizes too big. These, those fat Kamaboku kind with the flex. So I took those for my shower shoes. I, left Honolulu. Everyone piled with leis. I cried from Honolulu to Los Angeles. And then I went from Los Angeles to Newark, New Jersey. Have you been to Newark? Okay. It's not a beautiful place. And one of my grad students from when I was at UH, he lived in Newark. So he said I could stay at his house. And then his girlfriend drove me up to West Point and dropped me off. She just dropped me off. You think about it now, I would never have my kids, but I don't think my parents could really afford to fly with me, drive with me, drop me off. So I get dropped off. I have a red jumpsuit, cigar lei, big earrings, high sandals, platform shoes. I'm like, I'm here. So then you go through your in processing, they give you a little tag, they check everything off, and then you have to go to see the man in the red sash. And that's the upperclassmen where you're reporting to them, and they're telling you, drop your bags. And I'm just like, wow, these guys are in a bad mood. So that was my indoctrination, to West Point. It was really
and
intense. They just said, hey, you want to go? I'm like, yeah, sure, that'd be great.
and that sounds even more impressive to me, because I know, having been a boarder, that kind of trip was less daunting, I think. But for you, never really having been beyond California, going to
Yeah,
Newark,
it was crazy.
having a stranger drop you off.
I was at this guy's house. I mean, he was my teacher in psychology at UH, but and then you're just dropped off, and then you have all these people that have their parents went to West Point, or I mean, there's a whole long legacy, and there I am just dropped off, like, okay, I'm here. I think about it in retrospect. I don't know that I was afraid. Maybe I was afraid. Excuse me. But you just did it. So Yeah. So I
Well,
showed
I think with your endeavors in high school, you had that type of personality where, okay, I made this, this is what I'm doing,
yeah,
and come heck or high water, I'm gonna, cross the finish line kind of thing, you know?
yeah, yeah, because it's hard. There's times where it's super miserable there, but it's hard to quit. Like if you transfer, it feels like you quit. And I can't, it's just not in my DNA really to like quit. So going there really changed sort of the trajectory of my life because I'm not didn't live in Hawaii anymore. And I'm Hawaiian. I had to take. I was talking to Joanne and Hugh. I got to see them, Jeannie and Joe, while I was home. And she lives on the mainland. And she's like, it's like you have aloha written on your heart, right? And to me, that's it. You have it. And so people would tell me, I don't know if I had a good sense of humor, but I would almost think that it comes from where we come from that allowed me to sort of go through without getting too crazy. We had people that had really that ruined their lives in a way. It was hard because we were in the first class that had women, and there were a lot of people there that they didn't like you. They were not nice. They were nasty the way they talked to you.
They probably didn't appreciate the idea of having women there.
No, I mean, not at all. I mean, the superintendent had said, I'd rather die than have women. I'd rather die than have women come here. So then when we came and he was still alive, we're like, hey, brother, what happened? Thought you wanted to be dead. Sure, that's
Wow.
not, but yeah. So there were
Thi-
there were Hawaiians. In fact, Von Vasconcelos, he was a class of 78, 2 years ahead of me. He went to Kamehameha. He has a leadership program that he has now that he sponsors at the school, at our school. And Guy Ontai, those guys had gone to Kamehameha and they were 2 years ahead of me. And David Cooper, he was a brigadier general. He had gone to Kamehameha. Rick Shinseki, he was the secretary of the VA. I mean, he had a just stellar career. So, and Ernie Wilson, these guys were all locals, so they would adopted us when we could leave. And I had like my tutu's moo at their house. I would go over, I'd wash dishes or do whatever. But that was sort of a way to help, I think, so having those sponsors to take care of you.
Well,
It was,
that nice. That's a nice asset.
it was super nice. It's funny too, because I never saw snow before. And so they're like, Kellett, it's snowing. So that I had to go outside and it was like little flurries. And I was thinking snow is like those big cotton balls like you see in the movies. So when you first go out, you're like, this is snow? I had to pretend like, wow, it's so amazing. We had a big blizzard and then there was a lot of snow, but it was sunny like one time in December and I went for a run, but it was sunny. So I had shorts and a t-shirt. Came back bright red, freezing. But I guess it's we have no idea. I mean, it gets cold where you are, right?
Oh, very, with
Yeah,
lots of snow.
yeah. How long?
Normally, we've been treated well the last two winters, minimal snow, which is odd.
Yeah.
But my first year here, '09, snow was plowed off the highways, and you could see about that much of the top of every stop sign.
Oh my.
You only knew it was a stop sign because it was red.
Oh wow. That's
So yeah, it a big change of pace and
fun.
learning curve, big
Yeah.
learning curve.
Diving in the snow. Yeah.
Yeah, so it was not fun, but following family, I just
Yeah, no, I mean, I live here because all my kids are on the East Coast, you know? Yeah. I have one son, David. He is in Fairfax. He's on the autism spectrum, high functioning guy, but still challenging. It's a challenge. And then my youngest is the one who's in the salmon, doing the salmon fishing for the season. Maybe he can find himself. We'll see, right?
there you go.
Money. Yeah. We just sent him a box, caffeine pills, because he has to stay awake. So
Oh, okay.
because you have to stay awake, like whenever it's time to go, you have to just stay awake until all the fish are process, so
Wow. Any of your kids follow you into a military career?
no way. I asked my daughter, honey, you want it? She's like, no way, mom. No, no, they
No.
didn't. I mean, they grew up as military, so let me think. I graduated in 1980 from West Point. Okay. So then I didn't have my daughter Kaliko until 90, 10 years later. And we were at Fort Bragg, North Carolina, where she was born. And then we went to Fort Riley in Kansas, and that's where my son David was born. And then, so, in the Army, you have certain schools that you have to do. So you go to the basic course. That's a basic, I was in the Signal Corps, that was communications. So my first assignment was to Germany, in Neu-Ulm, Germany. And we did Pershing missiles, and I was a communicator. And so from there, I went up to a different place, so I was, you're a platoon leader, you're a company commander, you have all these kinds of jobs that you have. I mean, David Valenti, I think, is our highest ranking graduate, right? Because he was a captain in the Navy, which is awesome. And I remember I saw him at an Army Navy game when I was at West Point. He was at the Naval Academy.
Oh, all right.
And I said, hey, when did I see you? Did I visit you at Annapolis? He's like, no, I can only remember seeing you at the Army Navy game. But it's funny, right? Because that's like home right there to somebody that you know. So anyway, we did that. I came back. I taught ROTC in North Carolina. My husband was assigned to Fort Bragg, North Carolina. Our
Okay, so
daughter,
your husband's military.
yes, he is. I
Okay.
met him in the Army. He's from Virginia, Richmond, Virginia. I met him at a course where before I went to Germany for my first assignment, he was going to Korea. I was going to Germany. We knew each other for 6 weeks. We're like, hey, you want to get married? Yeah, why not? I know.
Wow.
I know. You see a pattern with my decision making, right? Yeah, sure. Good idea. Go to West Point. Yeah, why not? And
Pressure? No, no pressure.
so we got married mid tour, his Korea mid tour. And then he finished Korea, he went to Ranger School, he came over to Germany. When I first went to pick him up, I was just like, what have I done? I had talked to him on the phone. I'm like, I don't even think I like this guy. So go to the airport and it's just basically, hi, like put your hand up, hi, I'm your wife. So anyway, eventually, like, when we started living together, I'm like, oh, that's why I like that guy. So we've been married 43 years, pretty long time, still
Yeah.
married. Yeah. So anyway, we were at Fort Bragg. That's when Kaliko was born. Then we went out to Leavenworth, where there you go to Command and General Staff College. So I was there. And then there's a follow-on school called School of Advanced Military Studies. And I went to that like follow-on school where you learn to be an Army planner. So when I finished that, I went to Fort Riley where I was a planner at a division level. And then the division went away, so we then ended up going to Germany because there were no jobs available for us. I was a major at the time. My husband was a major, and so we went to Germany again in '95.
Okay, educate me now. If your military, husband's military, do they attempt to
Yeah,
station you together? Okay.
I think you have to be stationed within a 50-mile radius, but we were stationed in the same. There were lots of jobs where we went in Germany, so we were stationed in the same organization. And my youngest, I was pregnant when I showed up there. It's a great way to show up, big, fat, blah, hi, I'm here. So my son was born in September 11th of 95. We, at the
Odd
time,
anniversary.
yeah, poor guy, I would tell him, I'm like, honey, you are like the bright, shining light of the day. You are the goodness come to earth. And he's like, Mom, they're all turning the lights down and everyone's crying. I'm like, okay, that's just because of what happened. And we were in Germany when 9/11 happened, and we didn't have a TV at the time. And my neighbor, my German neighbor, came and told me, "Hey, come over to my house and watch it." And I think I'll go back to when we ended going to Germany, but all our German neighbors, they came to our house. They left like flowers and candles and notes after 9/11. It was unbelievable because we were the only Americans at the time in our neighborhood. So, anyway, Makana is born in September. We are getting ready to go to Bosnia, okay, for a peacekeeping operation. I had 6 weeks off after he was born. Then I had to go to the field, which was, that's a short amount of time after having a baby. Things have changed. My daughter gets 3 months off now. I guess they get 3 months off in the Army now, too. But at the time, it was 6 weeks. And then I deployed to Bosnia January 11th of 96. So I went to Bosnia. Okay, you got to go.
No,
Oh.
I had tomato sauce on my grocery list, and now I don't anymore because we found again.
Okay, so then I went to Bosnia but before I went to Bosnia, when my mom came to help me with the three kids, because Makana was the youngest, I decided then to get out of the Army because they were offering early retirement. I had, 0-year-old, a 15-month-old, and a 4.5-year-old. So I love being in the Army. Honestly, I like being in charge, people listening to me, which doesn't occur when you come home and you have three little kids. Nobody listens to you. Yeah. I was like, please send me back to Bosnia after I retire. Uh,
What
so,
rank did you leave the army at?
so I was major promotable to lieutenant colonel. So I came out on the list to be promoted to lieutenant colonel when I was deployed to Bosnia. I think March or April. And everyone's like, okay, she's going to stay. It was tempting. But yeah. So anyway, I retired. And then I went to that promotion ceremony for the guys that are my colleagues that got promoted to lieutenant colonel. I gave them a kiss, shook their hand, then went in the car and cried. But I got over it. Yeah.
Yeah,
I
because I mean, it's a lot to leave.
Yeah. I mean, I chose my family, right? The decision I don't think was that hard. I mean, it was hard, but the actual doing it was way harder because you go from being like responsible for like big things and you come home and you're responsible for little people, little problems, and it was hard to adjust to it. And I had told my husband, okay, honey, I'll make breakfast, the house will be clean, when I'm doing this, like when I get out. And when I was home, they had this thing in the newspaper like, oh, first PhD program in Germany. So July 4th, I read that and I applied for it. And he's like, hey, what happened to breakfast? What happened to the clean house? I'm like, I lied. I'm sorry, I lied.
Sorry, honey, I couldn't find any captains to hand off the assignments to. So
Exactly. Yeah. It wasn't. So anyway, I started doing that. It was in organizational leadership. I said, I've been in the Army this long. I need this, which is sort of, in retrospect, pretty selfish. So it was totally. And here I'm coming home. But anyway, I did it. He supported me. And in 2003, I defended my dissertation and then I was awarded my PhD.
so
So
the PhD officially is in what?
organizational leadership.
Okay.
And what does that mean? I mean, I think when you have to write the dissertation, it's really hard to set it up and do it. And I can remember we were back in Germany. Well, we already were in Germany when I was doing it. And I was kind of hiding out from my professor, I'm like, oh. And then I'm like, okay, look, you got to stop. You got to like finish because it's always like around your neck, it's like it's waiting for you. So then it was during the Tour de France. And I remember Lance Armstrong before we knew he was, a cheater. he was racing up the mountain and a lady's purse, he fell off the bike and they kind of waited for him. Then he got back on the bike and he won. So I'm up in my, upstairs in my little office typing, if Lance Armstrong can do it, I can do it. If he could do it, I could do it. So anyway, with a lot of help from my family, my neighbors, I finished. And I
Right.
really used it, when I was in school advisory committee because I was involved in the kids' school. And yeah, I guess it made me, I don't know, it makes you think in a different way. But
That's probably what it's intended to do. I mean,
you're supposed to add new information to the body of knowledge. So my paper looked at women who commanded in the army and did the institution change them or did the women change the institution? Because I really thought that, well, it's a very strong culture in the army, right? I really thought that when I went to West Point, it took your voice away. I was pretty outspoken for my opinions. And when you get there and nobody wants you there, it's hard. Like initially, it's like you it's self-selective silencing, but you're quiet. So I thought that the organization changed the women more than the women changed the organization. But as you went on and you worked with people, then you could see. But anyway, my findings were the women changed the organization.
and that would be the one I would pick in advance, not knowing what the result would be,
That
because it's just, yeah, it's a huge factor. Um, circumstances are definitely going to be different
yeah.
and new at the same time. So I imagine policy even had to change, right?
Well, it continued to change, and then they let women. Before it was mostly, in the army, there's combat arms, that's infantry, armor. There's branches. Then there's combat support, combat service support. Well, women were only allowed to go to the first two, combat support, combat service support, or the second two. And then when it opened to all branches, combat arms, really it's dealing with if you are in a relationship with somebody, you're no longer like a faceless one of those. They meet you, you're working hard, you got their back, you're doing stuff with them. They understand. It's like anything, they meet you. It's like anything with prejudice, right? Once you put a face to the person and who they are, and if they're decent, then they accept you. It's just a long process when you're trying to do it one relationship at a time, right? And that was kind of how it was. You'd meet people, you talk to them, and they would be like, "Oh, you're not like the other women. They try to make you an honorary man." I'm like, "No, no, no. There's plenty more just like me." So, but interesting. Yeah, that's why it's frustrating and disheartening to read the stuff that's going on now. The women that are in high positions, the general officers of color, they're being they're being fired because they talk about diversity. I believe diversity is really a strength. So anyway,
Well, if you're going to make a decision, I'd rather have tons of different people sitting at the table planning stuff with me
that's right.
than five people that are exactly alike
Yeah, that will
that
just
think the
say
same.
agree with whatever you say, right? Yeah. So
Because
so
I've learned to take advantage of other people's knowledge because I don't have nearly anywhere near all of it. So
well, it's like the more you know, the more you know, the less you know. So it's really the more you know, the more you learn what you don't know. It's like, oh, I didn't know that. Oh, I didn't know that so much. You just
yeah,
don't. So yeah.
because it's lightly related to a life philosophy I've adopted when I saw Oh God back in the 70s, where he said the important thing was that there had to be a comparison, otherwise one side would have no value. The little girl asked him, why do you make people starve? Why do you make them, die horribly? He goes, because if you were never hungry, you'd never be able to tell when you were full.
Huh.
Which it's made sense to me. So I've kind of said that, yeah, there's got to be both sides.
What's that?
I'm getting advised.
Oh, odd.
No.
Oh,
When I start to get too off script or big for my britches, I guess is the phrase.
big for your britches. It's always nice to have someone on the side to counsel you, though.
Oh yeah, because you don't know until you edit the video what actually came out of your mouth. So
Oh, do you edit?
no, very lightly because I like the freshness of it all.
I mean, it's cool what you're doing. Kathy Lau, she was telling me about it. I had known before. It was so fun to see everybody. Wow.
Yeah. It's just tough to get people to take the time in their lives. They think it's a lot more involved than it is, but
Yeah.
it's an hour or so and just gotta find, one person goes, well, I probably won't have time till August. I'm going, what does your life look like where you don't have an hour in the next 60 days?
They're probably that maybe that's someone who's really busy and successful, huh? Could be.
And sometimes it takes a little bit of fermentation to get them
Yeah.
to say yes because I've had lots of no's that have turned into I think I'm ready now. So
It's kind of scary. It's not a matter. I mean, we can talk about ourselves, right? We know what happened in our lives, so it's not hard to talk about it. But it is, I think, daunting in a way. I know that I'm the first female Hawaiian to graduate from West Point. That makes me super proud. First Kamehameha School's graduate female to graduate. I mean, Hawaii is essential to my being. I always wear flowers, whether they're fake or real. And so people just say, hey, where's your flower? Why do you wear a flower? I'm Native Hawaiian, or this is my home place. And they see me, right? And they're like, okay, what about? I'm like, okay, so yeah, I look haole, but yeah, I'm Hawaiian. I got deep roots,
yeah.
fifth generation, I'm fifth generation. But yeah, so I just think, my ability to get along with people, really a lot to get along, because I was so surprised when I meet people where they were so like in your face. You're like, hey, we don't do it like that.
Yeah.
Gotta work, the waters. So, yeah.
Before reunion, when was the last time you were back in Hawaii?
Oh, okay. So I would go home every once or twice a year, right?
Oh,
So
okay.
my family home in Kaneohe is still there. My dad died young. He was 58. He died in 1987. But my mom died in 19, when did she die? 20, I think, in 20. Or was it 19? I can't remember actually if it's 19 or 20. But she died in February. I want to say 20. She died in 20, in February 16th of 2020. And then I had visited her before, and then COVID hit, right? So I couldn't go home because I couldn't get back if I went home, just because of how crazy COVID was. My brother, um, he died in 24, and I had just retired. I was retiring, and he had been bedridden. And so I was going to go home and hang out with him. And I had questions I wanted to talk to him about. And he died on the 22nd of May. And I flew home then in June. Had planned to go. So in June, I flew home. And then we had a celebration of life July 18th. And then my nephew graduated. Well, that I guess July 18th, 24 was the last time I was home.
Okay. So about a year, almost a year.
Yeah.
Okay. Because I thought if it had been longer, I could ask you what was number one on your to-do list when you got off the plane. Was
You
it eat something special? Was it visit someplace? Was it see a person?
Also, where I grew up, right below the Ko'olaus, right, you know, you're familiar with Kaneohe. So Ho'omaluhia, the gardens, the gardens that they opened down there. Do you know?
Yeah.
So that was really our playground. It wasn't, we grew up right on the ash heap of that, around Ko'ola, right in the middle. And we would just hike down all where Ho'omaluhia is. The secret waterfalls, we would do hike all of that. So getting home, just that feeds my soul. But then I really want to eat some poke. I want the big char siu bao, you know. Yeah, so there's certain food that I always want. And then of course I want to see my two of my sister my one sister Mahi, she's class of 80 from Kamehameha. She lives on the Big Island. So but she came over, and then my sister Kaliko, she lives in Manoa. So I get to go see them, go to my house. My sister-in-law lives in our house right now until, it was part of my mom's will, where she can live in the house until she dies. But the house is open to us to come home anytime we want. Yeah.
All right.
It's always, and then to go swimming, to go to the beach. And I went to Kalamas, which is funny, right? Because we used to go there for school stuff, remember?
Yeah, yeah.
So you go dive in. I mean, it's just, yeah, the water, the salt, all that. I miss that.
Yeah, something, I mean, because we have lakes all over Minnesota, but just the difference in quality of water and just the fact that there's salt in it, it
Yes.
feels different.
I know. Well, it's funny because I'm like, like when the salt dries and you kind of, and they're like, ew, I hate that. I'm like, what's wrong with you? They don't want the salt dried on them. I'm like, that's it. You dive in. Oh, yeah. So I guess all of that, the food, the friends, the family. Yeah. What about
Did
what
how
about you?
long for me it's probably food. I'm just a food, I don't know, an addict, I guess. There are certain things like meat jun.
Uh-huh.
I learned after I left Hawaii that I always thought it was a Korean dish, and it's not. It's a Hawaii dish.
Oh, it is?
So I was never able to find it up on the mainland. And having grown up surrounded by Filipinos when I was in elementary school, I like dinuguan and pancit and a lot of the Filipino dishes that are kind of tough to find, or they're different now because you go commercial, you got to make sure the quality of ingredients is different. And, the guy next door boiled the blood and made the dish and brought it to your house and, you just ate it and went. So, but what I noticed is in this 50th,
Yeah.
it increased the bond I personally have with our classmates.
Yeah.
I mean, I saw so many people I hadn't seen in so long. Having
Yeah.
started this project in April, I learned so many fascinating things about people that I had minimal contact with in high school.
Yeah. No, I mean that's what Kathy La was telling me. That the people, like, she is waiting more so she can learn more. So that's the thing. You start watching, you're like, wow.
Yeah. Well, I have to use that in my renewed pitch to get Kathy to say yes. Then I say, if you go, maybe other people will
That's
go.
next. She's like, I'm looking forward to hear. I'm gonna write to her. I'm looking forward to hear about you. Yeah, because we went to see Val Wong's mom, who's 98,
Wow.
and Kathy was there, and Katie and I, and Val. Yeah, it's funny. It was so wonderful, really, to see everybody. I wish it was longer because then I could say, okay, who is that again? Because you can't see everybody.
Nah.
Luau, you can't at the class thing. I thought that was so nice because really you get to talk to everybody. Everyone's in the same place, but the luau is too spread out. You can't really. So
And then too, if you devote, what was our time there? 4 hours.
yeah,
You divvy that up into a 15 or 20-minute conversation per person,
yeah.
you're not going to see hardly anybody at all.
It's like speed dating. Okay, what have you been doing? And they're so I want to go back now. I got to write to them. Hey, I didn't get to talk to you. What's going on? So
Yeah, that's why I tried my best to collect as much contact information as I could, either talk to them more about doing a chat or just finding out. I mean, there's people I remember well from high school that, I got to talk to just a minute or two because somebody else was calling me or
right,
pointing
right.
somebody out to me.
Those conversations were so splintered, right? Because you'd start talking and then someone else would come up, and it wasn't like a, yeah. So this is great what you're doing. I think it's wonderful.
Yeah. What's a typical day for you now that you're retired and
Yeah. My husband's like, okay, so I, some of my body parts were replaced. I had to have a shoulder replacement, I had a knee replacement. So I had my knee replaced on June 26th of 24. Okay. So then I was 3 weeks into it when I went home for my brother's celebration of life. And then I'm like, oh, you got to get back into shape, because in the army you got to be in shape. So I got one of those, what do you call when you're like I don't know, it's like a program to get back, get in the gym. So I'm on the bench. We have a little in our garage. We have a gym. So I'm doing bench press and then I'm like, whoa, mate, I'm thinking, I'm this strong. And of course it was before that I was that strong. So the weight's like, I'm like, oh well. Oh, it was a boot camp. I was going boot camp to get back into shape. So then I screwed my shoulder up. So I had that replaced on April 9th. So I'm still working to try to get my strength back. So anyway, trying to get in shape. And I'm like sleeping. I came back from Hawaii and my husband's like, okay, are you gonna like get up? And he's and then he's like, you've been retired a year. You need to start doing something. I'm like, okay, wait a minute. Okay. Uh, I'm not you. And so I haven't, that's a long way to say I have not really figured out what I'm doing. I mean, yeah. Our daughter will have a baby, we'll help her. Our nephew, he just had a baby, so we help him. We cook for our kids. But I don't know yet. I was going to do a research project where I went and talked to all of the women who graduated with me.
that would be awesome.
So we had 119 started with us. It was a class of around like 1,200, I think, 1,200 students. And I think we graduated maybe 800. So 62 of the 119, like 50% finished. And we've had several die, women. So I've because I did my dissertation looking at women in the army, I thought it'd be fun just for our class to say, okay, why did you go there? Why did you stay? Some of it is just sustain. What would you have told your 19-year-old self? Don't go. So anyway, I'm thinking about doing that. I have to get in shape. I can't be like a blah blah the whole time, or maybe I can. So yeah,
Play it by ear.
yeah, played by ear. So what about you?
I still work part-time. I drive a school bus. I
Nice.
drive a little city transit. Uh, our town only has 10,000 people in it, so we don't get assigned city buses.
Huh?
We get assigned those little airport shuttle things that carries 12 to 15 people because it's enough,
Yeah.
and the expense difference. So I do
I
that, and I help
I
with.
could do the small kind. I couldn't do the big kind anyway. So
Well, the school bus gives me enough of that, so that just it gets me out of bed in the morning, and then it gives me lots of free time to figure out what grandchild project I'm going to help with, or
how many do you have now? Has anyone asked you these questions yet on our interviews or?
maybe along the way, a few people have asked what's more. I've got nine and two
Wow.
great grands.
Wow, nice. How many
Yeah.
kids do you have?
Four.
Nice. And they all have,
Four. Yeah.
and they're all in Minnesota?
For the most part, a couple have just recently moved because they're at that age where they have families of their own, and directions of their own and stuff. So we're kind of deciding now. The youngest is 17. She's decided she's going to go Air National Guard right when she graduates. So we're figuring, okay, well, now what do we do when the collective is gone? How do we decide how to be close to people who are nowhere near each other?
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
we'll see.
Yeah. Being close to your family is super nice. Yeah.
It's it helps me survive life in Minnesota.
Yeah. Well, right now we're having a heat wave over here in Virginia. It is hot, 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 hot.
How far, my geography is really bad. How far are you from saltwater, the ocean?
Virginia Beach, probably the closest. That's like, I don't know, 3.5 hours.
Okay.
So you can, yeah, go to that beach. I mean, it's not the same kind of beach, but my neighbor has a saltwater pool. I can go up there. That's like 5 minutes. She's
That
always saying,
helps a little
"Oh,
bit. Yeah, helps a little bit.
over." Yeah.
Near and around where you live, what's the proximity of so-called local food? Good Chinese food, good.
They have good Thai food by us, like close by, like, 20 minutes away. They have a lot of people, I went to the eastern shore of Maryland. Our neighbors have a beach house down there. We went and I ate a poke bowl. Ugh. I'm not saying eating any more poke bowls are on the eastern shore of anything, I mean, the ahi was good, but everything else was just like, so I might as well just make my own, right? There are places close by that try to do Hawaiian food, but it's not really, I don't know. I gotta
Yeah.
figure out how to make it myself or fly home more often, right? So I'm gonna try go home, at least 2 times a year or more. My niece is getting married on the Big Island, Sachi. I'll go to the wedding. Like, come on, we need happy things so we can all go together.
When is your daughter expecting?
August 9th.
Oh, okay. That's not too far off.
A boy. She's gonna name him Daniel Makoa, last name Hayward. So fearless and courageous. That's Makoa, right? I looked it up, but it's a good name, strong.
Good. And at least she's connected enough to choose a Hawaiian name. I mean,
Okay, look, her name is Kalikalehua. If she didn't pick a Hawaiian name, her mother would haunt her for the rest of her life. She knows that. She's afraid of me. Okay, I put fear into my kids' lives. They have to have Hawaiian names. Yeah. So
that
anyway,
was like, I was surprised Sean Holt has made certain his grandkids all have, or his kids did too, but they all
uh,
have a Hawaiian first name, English middle name.
well, I think she had a Hawaiian, and Kalikalehua is a family name. So Auntie, a sister Kalikalehua, Auntie Kalikalehua. So I met Katie Kamaka does tours of the ukulele factory on South Street on Tuesdays and Thursdays. So she did a tour, and there was a Kaliko, but it wasn't Lehua. He's up there doing all the repairs on the ukuleles. I'm like, oh, what kind of Kaliko are you? And then he told me Kaliko. I didn't remember the second part. Yeah. No, I mean it's essential to me, honestly. I tell people, "Oh, get your slippers. Those are not slippers. Those are flip-flops." I'm like, "Okay, whatever. Whatever you call it, put that on your feet." Uh,
That's why I thought you were going to get caught later on with the shower shoes that you chose to take to West Point with you.
okay, so there is a story about that. All right, I told you about the old lady shoes I had to wear. So they gave me really bad blisters because we didn't wear those kind of shoes. So I had to wear them. I got really bad blisters, and when they were testing our feet, like sizing us for boots, I had infection, so cellulitis. So it was like the red lines coming up from infected blisters, right? So I had to go to the hospital because anytime you're sick, you have to go to the hospital. There wasn't like a clinic. So I'm in the hospital And my roommate, there's like three beds in a ward or four. She's studying. You're supposed to study all this knowledge. And I think I just shaved my legs. I was putting lotion on my legs. And my squad leader comes in with some other cadre. And they're like, Kellett. I'm like, yes, sir. And then first of all, I'm like, sir. I mean, I never called my father sir, right? So I had to learn how to do all that stuff. So he goes, you're not in Hawaii anymore. What do you tell me? What are you smoking your sandals? You're not in Hawaii anymore. And basically, I'm like, oh, no kidding. So I was then released from the hospital, and you were supposed to wear your shower shoes. Because I couldn't wear shoes because I had the bad blisters, they had me wear my shower shoes. So I'm wearing my uniform, white over gray, with these slippers that are two sizes too big during like learning to march out on the apron of the plane at West Point. I'm thinking, oh my gosh, those guys just must think. Later I thought, at the time I didn't really think about it, but in retrospect you think they had first they didn't want women, then they get women, then they get somebody who's wearing these big slippers that are two sizes too big, marching. So that's my slipper story from whoever stole my slippers, the green ones. That fit.
We're good.
I hope they tripped or something with it.
I need to remember, I saw this just the other day on Facebook, and it says, somebody stole my camouflage and my slippers. So I know that they can hide, but they can't run.
That's what. That's really fun. Yeah, you can't. I couldn't. Those slippers were so ugly too. They were so ugly. Yellow. And I'm thinking, who stole my slipper? When I saw Dwayne too, I'm like, Dwayne, you had that party. Someone stole my slippers at your house, 50 years ago. Yeah.
He should have said, "Oh yeah, they returned you, but you never came by, so they're probably still there."
The yellow ones. It still would have been funny to be marching out there, because shower shoes, or now they have all those Nike slip-on shower shoes, but that's what I took with me. So my feet, I guess, are little. They're still luau feet, but
Oh
so what else?
boy, this has been neat. I mean, everyone has a story, and they're all unique and fascinating in their own way. At least for me, they are.
I mean,
Otherwise,
different
I
paths,
wouldn't
right? I
continue.
mean, we're gonna have to call you up and have you be interviewed by us.
Well, I already told Michael Crab if he wants to, I'll wrap things up at the end after absolutely nobody else is left to say yes.
Uh-huh.
We collect them all up and then we'll just kind of close it out with
Now, has Michael done it?
no. We're gonna get together closer to the end, and he'll probably be collecting more questions. So
Oh, is he the collector of questions, or for
he's a
you?
collect, yeah,
Yeah.
but he's a very good collector of all things in our lives. So
Mhm. I mean, there are people you see that you're like, that you just so completely, they look so themselves, right? They don't look changed. You just know how they are. But it was really, I love going back. So nice. And they're like, you
I
better come
think,
back next year. I'm like, okay, the next one, the 5 year, whatever. Oh, and then the
well,
Kapuna, I missed the Kapuna luncheon because I didn't know that Katie wanted to go. I'm like, I'm not gonna go. And Patrick Choi and Corey and all those guys were like, you should have gone. It was so nice. They had valet parking for the old people. Uh,
and then the little story was it Stu Lin where you guys
yeah,
encountered
yeah,
each other
yeah.
before at a art
Was
show or something?
so my nephew works at, is it Hawaii Pacific? It's right down by Ala Park, big bank. I'm trying to think what bank it is. And he works there. And they have like an art gallery. There's an opening for an artist, and they have the walls, and they have food, pupus and stuff. And so my sister Kaliko and I and her husband we just kind of moved in on that table. It was just Sulin and her neighbor. So we're talking to each other. And then there was like, oh, I'm here for my 50th. I'm here for my 50th. Where'd you go? Come in, man. When did ah! I'm like, what's your name? Susan Kellett. Susan Kellett. That's right, Susan Kellett. It's so funny. So I mean, honestly, it's like your name. Like it's not just Susan, right? It's your first and last. Because we had Susan Oy. We had more than one Susan. So it was always that was so funny to see her. I'm Susan.
Well, I discovered that or was reminded of it at class night. We have a lot of one syllable Asian last names from high school.
Yeah.
We have a ton of Lees, ton of Wongs.
Hands.
Yeah. So then you're sitting there like I ran into Dennis Lee, who goes by Bob now at My Ties, and I could not for the life of me remember what Dennis Lee looked like in high school. I had to come home and look him up. So
Yeah, I need my book. I don't have my yearbook, and I was relying on Katie, but she's like, "Oh, I didn't need it. I got rid of." Him. Like, what? Lifeline. I was gonna look through everybody, you know. Yeah, I didn't. I next year. Well, the next time we do it, I'm gonna do everything. I mean, I can't play golf, so I can't do that. But I'll do my ties. I mean, because then you get to meet different people, right, and talk to them. And you stayed at
yeah, it
the
was a good one.
hotel.
Yeah.
See, that's kind of nice. I just stayed at home.
Because
So,
what was nice is collectively at the end of each evening, we found kind of an isolated portion of the lobby and people would bust out their instruments and girls would dance and everybody would sing and talk story and yeah,
yeah,
so that was kind of a nice plus to it all. It extended the evening because like I say, 4 hours an evening is a lot but short.
it's short.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was funny. I forget who I was talking to about how Reiko Fukino was like, okay, mouth the words to me, don't sing. And then they grabbed me, whoever it was, maybe it was Corey, and took me to Abby and Kalena Doan. And they were under the microphone. And Reiko's like, you guys have to move. So the three of us, I don't know how much we gave towards song contest besides our mouths moving. In my next life, I want to be a singer.
There you go.
It missed me this life. I mean, I sing, but alone. Yeah.
Right.
Oh,
Well, I hope that they schedule things in less time than 5 years. I'm starting to feel like 5 years is too long at our age now.
we lost so many.
They
Like,
said 16 in the last 10 years. So,
oh, 16 in the last 10 years. Wow. Because 36 overall. That's really 10%. That is
yeah, yeah.
at 352. So not maybe a little more than 10%. Yeah. No, it would be nice. Because those guys are all there. They were hoping. How many people showed up anyway? Do you know?
I want to guess low twos, maybe.
Yeah, I was thinking they were hoping they'd make at least 100
Yeah,
initially.
it
Everybody, yeah.
started to avalanche halfway through, and then
I
they
mean
were
the
almost worried about stepping over capacity, and
yeah,
so
yeah.
it's careful what you wish for, right?
I know that's a good wish though. That's all right.
Good, good. Well, a big mahalo to you, Susan. Thank you so much. This has been awesome catching up because I didn't really spend that much time with you at class night, and I don't think I saw you at Luau either. So,
Oh, I know. Everyone knew Kermit Brown. Are you kidding me? Holy. So yeah, it just there was no time. I mean, even like Rhonda Hainish, I missed talking to her. And we were like, we did so much stuff, and I saw her, but really, I got to write to her now. Okay, we got to schedule a phone call so I can see like what's the what. You see everybody for that morsel of just happy, just like so happy to see each other. And then it's like, okay, the time just, that's the thing, right? The gift of time.
Did you get
Time is,
to watch Rhonda's chat?
no, I'm going to watch it. I haven't watched
Okay. You'll like it. It was a good one.
it yet.
They're all good, but hers was up there in the top percentile. So,
It's awesome.
Yeah.
All right,
So
Kermit.
thanks again. Enjoy the rest of your day.
I will. You too.
I
Okay.
do
I think I'm
appreciate the time.
Hey, my pleasure. I was a
Okay.
little nervous, but I can talk. So.
I wasn't worried.
Oh, you weren't? No. All right. See you later.
Okay.